Hello and welcome to my latest video. It's after 12 o'clock and midnight. What better time to make a video about religion, about God in particular. So today what I want to do is pose a scenario and ask a what-if question. Obviously, as atheists, we are all the time rebutting theist claims that God exists, with a lot of satisfaction, I must say. But at the same time, what if a philosophical proof arrived that was completely sound, that nobody after several years could find a weakness, that the premises are all proven and the logical steps are all in place. Everything is internally consistent and logical. And according to this proof, God exists. Now remember, on the atheist experience, I can't remember, it was probably about 7 or 8 years ago, a Christian came on and claimed that there may be such a proof that Matt's not aware of. And Matt asserted that there wasn't such a proof, and that if there was such a proof, somebody would have won the Nobel Prize by it, and that it would have been all over the news and we would all know about it. And of course, what happened from there is that the Christian said, "You've made a truth claim. Justify it." So they spent the whole show with Matt trying to justify that quite reasonable claim, instead of talking about what this Christian believed and why. Typical Christian strategy. So Matt made a bit of a mistake there again by making an unnecessary claim. He did clarify things in the end by saying that of all the philosophical proofs or justifications for God that he was aware of, there were none that were completely sound, and that if there were any proofs out there which are sound, he's not aware of them. Fair enough. Me neither. And I don't believe that there are any such proofs out there, because I would think that if a philosopher has been working 30 years on such a proof and he's found such an argument which is completely sound and unassailable, I would think he would want the world to know about it. But let's just supposing that there is a Christian or theist, let's say a Christian philosopher out there who's been working for 50 years, and he's been honing a proof, an argument for the existence of God, and he's been passing it around other philosophers, and they've been finding little faults with it, and eventually he has actually finalized something, an argument for the existence of God. Let's not call it a proof, because obviously that's really about mathematics, but we have proofs in mathematics. In philosophy is something different. He's got an argument, he's got an unassailable, completely sound argument for the existence of God, and that is now being published. It is being peer-reviewed. It is going around all the philosophy departments in all the universities around the world. It is becoming world famous. Nobody can find absolutely anything wrong with it after, say, 2 years, and it has been declared by the academic world completely sound proof for the existence of God. Okay. How are we, as atheists, going to respond to that? Are we still going to be atheists? Well, if there is such an argument, and it's unassailable, and it's sound, and it's been declared as such, we're going to have to admit that we are probably going to have to admit that according to this argument, God exists. Is that going to be a definitive admission? And does that mean that we're no longer going to be atheists? That's the question. Let's supposing that I see such an argument and I'm aware that it's been declared sound by the world of philosophy, and I read it through myself and I'm able to understand it. And I also say, well, yeah, it seems that God exists. Am I going to say that? Or are we going to say, okay, you found an argument which is completely consistent, but we need evidence, because can a philosophical argument be considered evidence as such? I would say personally, for me, no. I would think that an internally consistent argument would need to be backed up by something more. But let's supposing for a moment that we agree that a God exists. Let's suppose that we don't insist on empirical evidence to feed into the argument, to underpin it. So let's supposing we say, okay, God exists. I was an atheist. We have here an argument, and I'm no longer an atheist. What difference is it going to make? Well, of course, we won't be on YouTube claiming that God doesn't exist, for one thing. But how else is it going to change our lives? Are we going to start to worship this God? Unlikely. And which God is it? Is it Allah? Is it Jehovah? Is it Jesus? All the argument is going to do, if anything, at the most, is establish that there is a God, but we don't know which God. So, personally, for me, speaking for myself, apart from settling the question over God's existence, I don't really see how it would make any difference in my life. It would not convince me that there's an afterlife, because there could be a God with no afterlife. Why should there be an afterlife? In the Old Testament, for example, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's no emphasis on an afterlife. This seems to be something which has come along with Christianity. So I could see how there could be a God and no afterlife. So that's pretty much useless. If there's no afterlife, if there's a God but no afterlife, what good is the God? And given that we wouldn't know which God it is, there's no way we could attach ourselves to any possible religion. I suspect that we would just simply get on with our lives and stop all this atheist stuff. I'm not going to go any further than that. I invite comments. What do you think of my question there? That if we had this argument, this sound argument that the world has been waiting for, because let's face it, all the previous arguments, none of them are sound. Thomas Aquinas and the causation argument, his 5 arguments, and every other argument that's been put forward has more or less been debunked. I know that a lot of Christians say, oh, well, the Kalam cosmological argument or the teleological argument, etc., the ontological argument, they will all say, well, these are good proofs of God, but they're not really, because if they were, then I wouldn't be here now saying that, I don't believe in God, if they were really so convincing and the whole of the philosophical world embraced them. Then obviously, I suppose I would be a theist, I wouldn't be an atheist. And the vast majority of all the philosophers out there would also be theists. So obviously, But what if we had this sound argument for the existence of God? That's my question to you. What difference would it make in your life, given that we wouldn't know which God it is? We wouldn't know if there's an afterlife, heaven and hell, and everything, and all the rest of the dogma. What difference would it make, apart from the fact that we wouldn't be having these arguments with theists? I suppose the arguments we would be having, is over what is God's nature and what is His meaning for mankind. Those would be the kind of arguments we'd be having with Christians. Christians would be saying, well, obviously, the God which is now proven to exist is the God of the Bible and the Trinity, Jesus, the Holy Spirit. And Muslims would be saying, well, it's Allah. So do you think that those are the arguments we would be having about what is the nature of God? If it was proven that there is a God, what is the nature of it? I think those are the kind of arguments we would be having. We wouldn't be calling ourselves atheists anymore. We would have to be something else. I'm not too sure what, because I wouldn't feel comfortable calling myself a theist, even if there was a philosophical proof for God. So I think I'll leave it there. You get my point. And thanks for subscribing to my videos. And give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this. And I do hope you will keep checking back for more content. And I look forward to seeing you very soon.